Oh, okay. Hello again. Yeah, we'll have Rafał talk about all of the good stuff. So yeah, enjoy it. Again, Orange Tessibot on Messenger and Telegram. Start the conversation with him. You will see you can rate, ask questions. Please do that. It's much easier for everybody, and we'll have the best questions pop out here. So you will enjoy it more. And that's it, Rafał. They will do it, don't worry.
Okay.
I will just start you.
Okay.
So please do.
1, 2. Hello? Okay, I think we can start. So, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining my talk. Thank you organizers for inviting me to this wonderful conference. And it's an honor to be here. And also, it's my first time in Belgrade and in Serbia in general, so I also have the opportunity to get to know a little bit about the culture and the country itself. What I'm going to talk about today is the device called HoloLens and the holographic experiences that we can get with this device, and also a little bit about the thing called mixed reality. But let me first introduce myself. I'm Rafał Legiędź. I'm from Poland. And I work for a consultancy company called Solid Brain, and it's based in Krakow, Poland. And what I do for last half of the year is that I mainly focused on these holographic experiences. What I do is I explore the possibilities. I try to talk with different companies, different businesses to try to employ this technology to their processes to help them integrate these solutions to their businesses. Also, I'm a conference organizer. I organize a conference in Krakow called DevConf since 2011, and last month we did have 7th edition of it. And also, I try to be a conference speaker. So whenever I have something interesting to say, or at least I think I have something interesting to say, I apply to conferences and go to various places. So what we will hear during this talk are several acronyms that you might be familiar with, but I'll do a quick recap. Namely, those are VR and AR. So VR stands for virtual reality, and that's basically the experience the user can get while using the VR device. And we have several of them right now in the market. And to name just a few is Oculus Rift, for example, or HTC Vive, or PSVR, or the ones that support the way that you put the mobile device to a headset and have a virtual reality headset made out of the mobile phone. But what VR gives us is a fully synthetic experience to a user. User is completely cut off from the real world, and he's basically transferred to virtual reality without a sense of the real world. On the other hand, we have AR, which stands for augmented reality. And as the name suggests, it's the reality that we see, but enhanced with some digital content. And the solutions we have right now on the market are mainly based on mobile devices like smartphones or tablets. So the user gets a device, and he or she looks through the device's screen, and the device displays whatever the device can see through the lenses, and also it lays some digital content over this image. And also we do have some known wearable AR devices out there as well. For example, Google Glass, that was released in 2013 as far as I remember. But all of them are some kind of detached from, I mean, the digital content that is being displayed on those devices doesn't interact pretty well with the physical reality. So where HoloLens fits in these two groups or somewhere in between? So long time ago, before we did have all those AR and VR devices, we could have divided our world into two pieces, like the physical reality and digital reality. Whatever we had on our computers was digital. Whatever we perceived as human beings was a physical reality. But after sometimes when companies started to develop new solutions, AR and VR solutions, it occurred that there's a whole new spectrum of experiences that we can get between physical reality or virtual reality, which, depending on the solution, mixes those two in various ways. So current AR solutions, in my opinion, is somewhere near here, near the physical reality. That's because whenever we are using current AR solutions, we are completely aware that we are still in our physical world. We are just looking through the screen of the mobile phone or a tablet, and we are just getting some extra content on top of it. So we are not fully immersed. We are barely immersed into this digital world. Well, with some recent advancements in technology, in frameworks that are being developed, for example, by Google or Apple, namely the AR Core from Google or AR Kit from Apple, we can get a little bit more sophisticated AR experiences on mobile devices, because those frameworks, they employ some kind of more advanced image processing techniques, so that the application can actually detect flat surfaces, for example, on itself. So the digital content that is inside this application can interact with the real surfaces. So we can get the better AR experience then. And what about current VR devices? Current VR devices, as I mentioned before, like Oculus, Vive, for example, they're on the other side of the spectrum, because what they do, they move the user completely to a virtual environment in a way that the user's brain is completely tricked, and the user thinks that he or she is actually in this virtual world. You can actually see all those videos on the internet called like VR pranks, that you have a user that has the virtual reality headset on, and there's some other guy standing next to him or her and just poking that person, and this person completely freaks out because there's this other action coming from the real world, and the user is in completely different world. And that shows how the brain is tricked and thinks that it's in a virtual world. So where is HoloLens in all of this? HoloLens, as being marketed by Microsoft, is on this AR side, I would say, of the spectrum, near the physical reality. That's why, because it's a device that you put on your head and you can still see the real world, because it has a see-through glasses, but the technology that is being employed in this device allows for very sophisticated experience, way more sophisticated than what we have in mobile phones or tablets. That's why it spans a little bit further towards the center of this spectrum. And the other thing that is worth mentioning, in my opinion, even if the talk is not about this completely, is that Microsoft and partnering companies recently, actually 2 days ago, they released a new set of headsets. Those are virtual reality headsets, and they are being called Windows Mixed Reality. And we have several vendors of them, like Lenovo, Asus, Acer, Samsung, Dell. And those are, of course, like regular VR headsets, like Oculus or Vive. But the very interesting part there is that they have pieces of technologies from HoloLens inside of them. The piece of technology I have on my mind is the tracking technology. So, for example, Vive and Oculus, they all require external sensors so that the user's head and hand movements are being tracked. So with those new VR headsets, there's no need of external sensor. So basically, the user can put the VR headset on and can freely move inside the room without worrying to leave, that he or she would leave the area that is being tracked by the sensor. So that moves this VR experience also a little bit further the center of the of this spectrum. And all of this is called by Microsoft as mixed reality. So what Microsoft is trying to do with those devices, those VR headsets and HoloLens right now, at least how I understand it, is to fill this spectrum of different mixed reality experiences. But we are talking about HoloLens today. I think there could be like a totally separate new talk about mixed reality headsets. Well, I will do a quick slide about those headsets because they are really exciting in my opinion. I think the aim here is to bring VR headsets to the mainstream because Oculus and Vive, there were for a very long time, they were too expensive to be at every household. What happened right now, Microsoft released like 6 separate brands of VR headsets with different prices, so that would naturally cause the price drops, right? As everything on the market, if you have a competition. Also, with those new headsets, Microsoft released the Windows 10 update, which is called Fall Creators Update, which brings VR capability to every Windows 10 that is upgraded to this version. So basically, every user that has Windows 10 will have Windows 10 enabled VR system. And what else that is worth to mention is that hardware requirements for those new headsets and for those new VR experiences are way lower than what you have with Oculus and Vive. And that would be it about mixed reality headsets. Let's focus on the device called HoloLens. So how many of you have heard about HoloLens already? Okay, that's good that not all of you. But okay, so this headset has been was announced in 2015 as far as I remember. It was released in 2016 and the first wave of devices was shipped to developers in June 2016. So it's more than a year that it's already on the market. And the cost of this device is $3,000, so it's not very cheap, I would say. But you will see what you're paying for in a minute. The other thing here to add is that this device is a self-contained computer. So there's no need for a separate computer to be connected to. So this device is untethered, so the user can go with this device anywhere he or she likes. Also, this device runs Windows 10, so that enables, for example, well-known tools to be used to develop applications. So in this case, we can develop applications, for example, in Unity and writing C# scripts, or we can go a level deeper and use C++ with DirectX. So it's nothing exotic. Those tools are usually well known. So this device, it works like this. You put it on your head, fire it up, fire the application, and all of a sudden you have holograms all around you, depending on the application and the scenario, and you can interact with them. The holograms I'm mentioning here are the regular 3D objects that you could do in every, for example, game that you create, for example, in Unity. So it's nothing fancy. They are just being called holograms when being used on this device. And it won't all be possible without all the sophisticated hardware that is put inside. So let's start with sensors. That's I think one of the main differentiators when you would compare it to the other AR solutions that are out there, because most of the phones or tablets just use their regular RGB camera that is being mounted, well, except maybe the Project Tango from Google, which has some other sensors built in to the special phone, but you have to have special phone for that. But with HoloLens, to omit those regular sensors, it has 4 environmental understanding cameras. This is the thing that enables this true AR experience for this device, which we will see a little bit later. Basically, those 4 cameras which are on the sides, they scan users' environment, and it gathers data about where is the floor, where are all the obstacles that are in the real world, where are the walls, where is the ceiling, etc. There is also a dev camera. There are 4 microphones, and those 4 microphones are there for simply detecting the voice commands that are being issued by the user. And there are 4 of them because the device has to be sure that the command comes from the user's mouth actually, and not from some other person's mouth which is standing next to the user. So that's why 4 of them. Also, there's a thing called mixed reality capture, and that's the component that allows for recording or viewing what the user can see through the glasses. And basically, you can connect to the headset from your computer and see whatever the user sees. Also, there is this pair of advanced optics, which basically are see-through holographic lenses. I didn't go really deep into what kind of technology is actually being used there, but they allow for rendering those 3D content in front of the user eyes in a very convincing way. Each eye has its own light engine, which is HD, and we don't describe resolution of HoloLens in terms of regular resolution as we say when we are talking about regular screens, because we don't have to render every single pixel that users see. We only have to render actual holograms, right? Everything else we have for free because we're looking at the physical reality. So we are talking here about holographic resolutions, which means how many light points can the device render at the given moment. So, and light points are those points which made up the hologram. So in this case, HoloLens supports 2.3 million light points to be rendered. And also we have something called holographic density, which is basically the same as DPI on regular screens, which means how many light points can be rendered per radiant. Also, there's this thing called HPU, which stands for Holographic Processing Unit, and this is a customly based coprocessor that sits in HoloLens, and it's doing the work of processing all the sensory data. So whatever comes from sensors goes through this processing unit, and then it's being passed to the regular processor. And also it processes users' gestures, because user can use gestures to interact with objects. When it comes to other parts of hardware that is being there, it has a regular processor as well. It has 2 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of flash memory, speakers, which are not regular speakers, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Also, there is Bluetooth, there is Wi-Fi, and obviously there are some batteries so that we can go without cables. And it's worth to mention that there is, you might notice that there is no, for example, GPS unit or 3G unit inside, and that might be somehow surprising because every mobile device right now has this kind of features, almost. But in this case, HoloLens, I think, was designed to use mainly indoors, so there wouldn't be, there's no need for GPS or 3G, and also battery life. It would be even worse if we would have those kind of modules inside. So, how does user interact? How do we operate HoloLens? So there's this input paradigm for a HoloLens called GGV, which stands for gaze, gesture, and voice. And gaze is basically, if you ever had like VR headsets on, it's the same there. It's basically, you can imagine like an invisible ray that comes from your forehead, and wherever you move your head and look at something, that ray is following your head, and that's gaze. That's a main primary indication mechanism. Whenever we want to start, whenever the user wants to start interacting with any object, it has to first look at this object, obviously, right? So it feels very natural, but if you have a lot of holograms in your application, your user starts to move your head a lot. The other thing is gesture, or art gestures, where gestures allows for issuing the interaction to holograms or to the digital content that we are displaying. And basically we have two kind of gestures that are available in HoloLens. One is bloom, which is basically something like this, and this is nothing we use in applications. This is kind of a system gesture, I would say. It starts the start menu or it closes the application. The other gesture we have is an air tap gesture, which is something like this. And this is the same, I would say, as mouse click on a regular computer. You just air tap. You just look at something and doing an air tap to interact with an object. And based on that gesture, there are some other gestures derived, like hold gesture, which would be like half of the air tap, like just holding the fingers together, and we can detect it. And also there are manipulation and navigation gestures, which are basically the same as hold, and then some movement so that we can track the movement of the hand. And there are no other gestures, because that's the common question I keep getting, if we can program our own gestures. There are no other gestures, we have only this, and it's somehow a good thing, I would say. The other thing is voice. Voice, well, it complements gestures, because we can issue some commands with voice, we can program it, and the only supported language right now is English. And what can I say? We can also just look at some object and issue some command, and the action would start. There are two more things that makes this immersive experience in HoloLens possible. First one is spatial sound. Human brain works like this when it comes to the sound in a 3D space. When you would stand on the street, for example, and shut your eyes, and there would be a car coming down the road, you would easily, with your eyes shut, you would easily be able to locate this car in the 3D space around you, because the sound that comes to your ears is being processed by brain, and the brain locates the sound where it comes from. And the audio system that is being employed in HoloLens, it works the same way. It's called HRTF. Basically, the speakers mimics the same situation. Whenever we have a hologram somewhere in our space, in this AR space, the sound that comes from this hologram is being delivered to our ears in the same way that we have sounds in our real life. And this enables some cool immersive experiences when it comes to audio. First is gaze mixing, which means we can have some nice audio cues when we look at something. We can have audio haptics, so we can have some haptic sounds after interaction. We have occlusion, which is really cool. Basically, when we would hide a hologram behind a wall, for example, the real wall would occlude the sound that is coming from the hologram. And that all creates really immersive experience when it comes to sound in HoloLens. And creme de la creme, in my opinion, the most exciting thing implemented in HoloLens is spatial mapping. I could go really deep into this subject, so I have like a separate talk about spatial mapping in HoloLens. But to make it short, as I mentioned before, there are those 4 environmental understanding cameras. And from the moment that HoloLens is turned on, they keep scanning users' surroundings. Even if we don't have the app running on HoloLens, unless it started, even on an operating system level, it keeps scanning. So if I would have HoloLens with me and I would just leave it here running, it would constantly scan whatever it sees and scan for all the changes. And all the data it gathers, they're being stored on an operating system level. And developers that create application can make use of those data. Basically, for recreating physical location in the application, like in a virtual way. I mean, basically the room that is being scanned can be recreated in the application with 3D objects. And now, for example, here we can see the scan of this room, and this digital representation of this room has some material applied, the green grid material, so that we can see what kind of information we have. And we can do the same thing on HoloLens, actually. We can visualize whatever is scanned. And if we would turn off that material, that green material, and just leave it as it is, and then put our holograms into the application, then we would see that those holograms interact with our physical things like tables, floor, walls, etc. And that really tricks the brain in a way that the brain thinks that this is really the part of the reality. And that enables some cool cases as well. One of it is placement. So for example, we can place digital, virtual paintings on our physical walls. We can place some buildings on our table or on our floor. We can have some characters in the game running on our floor or jumping from a table to a bed, or etc. We have occlusion, so the same as with spatial audio. If we would hide our hologram behind the wall, we wouldn't see it. And if we would go to the other side of the wall where the hologram is, we would start seeing it. So that makes all those little details makes this immersive experience really great. Also, we have the physics enabled, because this virtual representation of the room is actually also a 3D object as other holograms. So we can employ all the physics engine that we have in Unity, for example, for interaction. So our holograms can interact with our real worlds. Our virtual ball, for example, can hit the real wall, right? So that's a cool thing as well. And also we can have things like navigation. So if we would have a game, for example, if we would have some characters running on our floor, we could implement some algorithms so that they omit real obstacles. And that all comes with the price. The biggest shortcoming with HoloLens, I think, is the field of view. But, I mean, it's because the technology that is being used in those lenses, those waveguides, they allows for a really short field of view, like less than 40 degrees. And that's one thing. I think that's kind of a trade-off between the battery life and the price tag of the device. And but if you would employ or if you would follow the guidelines given by Microsoft how to design applications having this field of view in your mind, you can create really good experience for the user, so that user doesn't care about this field of view. So all this fancy technology, the device for $3,000, and all the great minds that started implementing implementing solutions for this device, they started some kind of revolution or a new way how we will interact with digital content in our life. So for example, you can imagine a Nyan Cat, for example, running on your desk. That's an actual application. That's my desk, and I have the digital Nyan Cat running on my table. Or you can have, I don't know if you are familiar with Power Rangers. There was Zordon there, the mentor of Power Rangers. So that's, for example, a project I did with my colleague at HoloLens Hackathon in May, so that you can have your own Zordon. So this application has two parts. One is running on the computer with Kinect connected, and that's where my friend was sitting. And basically, we were catching the face of my friend with Kinect and taking a picture so that we would have a nice texture there as well. And we were transferring the movements of the mimics of the face and the picture to a HoloLens application. And there, I rendered this nice bluish transparent tube with the face of Zordon inside, which was my friend actually, and it worked pretty well. I would say we didn't win the hackathon, but it was fun. But jokes aside, it's been a year since the device was went to developers, and there are a whole bunch of nice applications that hit the Windows Store. So there are 300 plus of them, and you might be surprised that it's not a lot if you would compare it with, for example, App Store or Google Play. But we can have this thing on our mind that this device is not consumer targeted. So it's not like every kid would have it and would play your game, right? It's rather targeted to other businesses. But still, developers are working on good solutions. They're putting them in the store. Some of them are purely for entertainment. There are some games. There are some educational applications. There are some utilities like Skype, for example, or there are some applications that enable holographic solutions to an application that is already on desktops, like, for example, SketchUp viewer there. But the most exciting part when it comes to creating solutions for HoloLens, in my opinion, is when you target businesses, actually. And it also is happening. There are a lot of companies already out there that partner with real businesses that have from other industries, like manufacturing industries, like medical industry, like any other, and they're creating pretty cool solutions there, and it's actually happening. So to give you some examples, recently Ford, for example, announced that they started using HoloLens for designing purposes, so that the designers can do some tweaks of the designs right in front of their eyes using HoloLens, as you can see on this picture. And the other thing to notice on this picture is that you have two men wearing HoloLens. And that's the cool thing about HoloLens, is that you can enable the thing which is called sharing, like hologram sharing, which means you can have one application running on several devices sharing the same holographic space, so that several users can use the same applications having different devices being worn. The other example, my favorite, I guess, is from a company called Teasing Group. They're making elevators, and they created the HoloLens applications for their service workers. So whenever the service worker goes to do some maintenance work on an elevator, he can wear a HoloLens and get all the contextual information right in front of his or her eyes. And that's pretty cool, because he can be hands-free to do actual work, and it can have, for example, service manuals, some video tutorials, all the 3D model of an actual thing that he or she is working on in front of the eyes. And the other example would be Citibank, which has these trading applications for their workers, so that you can view financial data right in front of your eyes in form of some 3D objects, which is really cool. All of this that I'm showing you right now is actually available in YouTube. So if you would Google those cases, you would see actually movies from those scenarios. And the other case is Schneider Electric, where this case is similar to the Teasing Group one. It's an application for service workers as well, so that whenever a service worker comes to the appliance that he or she is going to do some service work on, he can get the overlaid data that fits the actual device, and can get, for example, step-by-step instructions nicely visualized on top of that device, which is pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure you can think of many other applications that could be working on HoloLens or other devices. For example, there's this hyper reality really short video out there, which is really cool, which is actually funny and a little bit scary if you know the TV series called Black Mirror. But it shows like the application of AR to like the most extreme state. But that gives us some ideas where it could be used in our real life. So if we would finally get those kind of devices that would hit the consumer market, we would be able to create a whole bunch of new experiences for the users. And you might ask, what about competition? Is Microsoft the only company that is doing this kind of sophisticated AR device? And well, my answer would be yes, because this HoloLens is really, really sophisticated one. It can deliver really immersive AR experience because of spatial mapping, spatial sound, because it's untethered. But there are some solutions which are like HoloLens or deliver some kind of good AR solution. So for example, one is Meta 2 device, which is the one there, which is very like HoloLens. It is kind of a see-through glasses. It even has pretty good field of view because it's something around 100 degrees. So I think it's twice better than what HoloLens have, but it's tethered. You need a computer to use it. So it loses this freedom of movement. And I think you can still buy it. It's still just announced, I think. Also, you have this AR kit and AR core from Apple and Google so that you can deliver some cool AR solutions for mobile phones or tablets. And with AR core and Tango project, you can get a special smartphone with additional sensors. And I think that happens with iPhone X as well. They have some other sensors there that enables some more AR capabilities that can be delivered. Also, we have Google Glass, which I've mentioned already, which were released in 2013. Then they were killed, but they were killed only for the consumers. Enterprises still using it. And it's around, I think, 50-ish implementations around the world with Google Glass for enterprises, and enterprises still are using it. But this device is way simpler than HoloLens because it basically allows for like HUD display in front of the user eyes without like all those sensory data that we can get in HoloLens. And also there is this Epson Moverio smart glass, which is very similar what Google Glass is, but it's being made by Epson. But it's out there and you can buy it. It comes with free forms with different price tags. So I think I have 3 minutes left on this counter, I think. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And I have this device with me, HoloLens, in my backpack. So whoever likes to try it, just find me somewhere there or just around, just after my session, and I will show it to you and give it a try. So that's it. Any questions? Yes?
Hi. So first a commentary. When we got the HoloLens, I was amazed it actually works. So it's great. But the problem, as you said, is the field of view. So my opinion is that it's only for us developers to adapt to the new kind of development. Maybe for HoloLens 2 or 3 it will be better. But what are your thoughts on Project Tango? Because we have AR Core, we have AR Kit, and for Tango we have 2 phones in the world that actually support Project Tango, which is a problem. Everybody has an iPhone actually. Yeah. So, but in my opinion, Tango is great because it has area learning, something like HoloLens, that you can actually export a mesh of the area. So what are your thoughts on that? Is Google killing Tango, or I don't know?
I don't know. I've recently seen this, that they're actually not pushing this Tango that well. So I'm not sure, actually. I'm surprised as well. I'm not doing any AR Kit or AR Core solutions, but that's surprising. I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe because it's really hard to get with the new phone to the market. I'm not sure, because you have to have like buy totally new phone, right? Dedicated to it. I don't know, something like that. Okay. But the other case is, when I was thinking about Tango, is that I thought at the very beginning that it's cool, because if you would put this Android phone into the Daydream, for example, the headset, and you would have like a Project Tango there as well, you could basically get the same thing as you have with HoloLens. But it's not happening right now, so I don't know why as well. That's surprising for me. Yes?
Does the developer need to have the HoloLens to actually develop a software for HoloLens, or do you have an emulator where I could use to
that's
build
a great
applications?
question. That's a great question. Yeah, and the answer is no. You don't have to have HoloLens to start developing for it, and that's how I started actually. All the tooling I use is Unity editor, which is free, and Visual Studio. But you don't have to use Visual Studio, of course. Those are just C# scripts. But what you have in Visual Studio is the emulator for HoloLens. That's one thing. But some time after the release, Unity also delivered their own kind of emulator thing that you can run the HoloLens application inside Unity editor. So it's not necessary, but of course for testing on regular scenarios you have to have the device. But for starters, you don't have to have it. I mean, I went through all the tutorials at the very beginning without having the device itself. So yeah.
I guess that's it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to try HoloLens, just find me and we'll hook up.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. So you wanted to ask something?